So you may have noticed that it's just me, there's no Aleesha, and I actually am flying solo on this trip. Apparently it is good luck to rub the noses, and the higher that you can reach on the statue, the more luck you'll have. I got the cat, so I guess I'm second luckiest. You literally just got to like go in and the guy would be like, oh, do you want to hold the AK-47? Also, big difference compared to other palaces in Europe. There is literally nobody in this room. Good morning guys, and welcome to Riga, Latvia. So you may have noticed that it's just me, there's no Aleesha, and I actually am flying solo on this trip. So my company gave us an extra day off, kind of coinciding with the American Thanksgiving, and Ryanair just happened to have 10-pound flights to Riga, so I thought, yeah, why not? Let's go to Riga. So I got in last night. I'm already a little bit hungover. I'm staying at the Naughty Squirrel Hostel, and those guys love to party. So I walked right in, and there was already like some sort of a party going on. So I ended up having a couple pints. So a little bit of a late start here this morning.
We know what we have, let's hold on tight.
Honestly, from initial walk around the town, it is super quiet here. So Latvia has been hit pretty hard by COVID, and they had a lockdown a few weeks ago. It just ended, but it's still really quiet. Like, it's after 9 and the streets are basically empty. I've just been walking around and literally I'll see a person every like 5 minutes maybe. So still a bit sleepy here, I guess you could say, but hopefully as the day goes on, more people will be out and the city will start to come alive a little bit. All right guys, I'm just continuing my wander around the old town here, and I've stumbled onto probably Riga's most famous site behind me here, which is the House of the Blackheads. So this was originally constructed back in the 14th century by the Brotherhood of the Blackheads, which is basically, it was like a merchant's guild, but specifically for unmarried merchants, and this was kind of their hangout spot, I guess you could say. Unfortunately, it was destroyed during bombing during World War II, but they painstakingly rebuilt it between 1996 and 1999, and it looks absolutely amazing. Clearly the centerpiece of the Riga Old Town. So another kind of cool site in this square is there's this tiny little statue of a Christmas tree, and apparently this is where the first Christmas tree ever was put up in this little square in Riga. Don't know if that's actually true or not, but cool little legend. Honestly, still really can't get over just how few people there are out. Like, it's almost 10 o'clock and I'm still here by the House of the Blackheads, and there's like maybe 5 people here taking pictures. You know, I've never actually traveled in like true off season, like end of November, and I guess obviously as well Riga is maybe not the first place a lot of at least North Americans would think about going, so it's just kind of interesting to basically have a town all to yourself. It's a really nice experience. I think I'm going to start doing this a little more often. Of course, the trade-off to traveling in Latvia at the end of November is it is pretty cold. Like, it's like around 0, which doesn't sound too bad, but when you're just kind of walking around and there's a bit of a breeze, like, it's a little chilly, so probably the only downside, but I mean, I kind of knew that when I signed up for it, so. Alright guys, so behind me is kind of another famous site here in Riga. It's called the Cat House. The backstory behind it is there was a merchant who was not allowed into the guild. The guild houses are right across the street from where this building was built. So he was really petty about it. He built this building, and then he also added these cat statues on top of the building. And he specifically made it so that the cats, with the way they were positioned, their butts were basically facing the guild hall. And the guild merchants were super offended by this. Apparently this was like a whole thing. There was like a lawsuit and everything, and eventually he did have to have the cats turned to face the other way. So such a petty dispute, but it's kind of a funny story of why this is such a famous site here in Riga. To escape the cold, I decided to check out the Latvian War Museum. It's free to enter and offers a great look at Latvia's military history through the Middle Ages to the 20th century. There are poignant reminders everywhere of the losses Latvia suffered, particularly during World War I and the brutal 2-year civil war that followed independence in 1918. A visit to this museum is a great way to better understand Latvia's difficult history. Alright, well the museum was pretty neat. Really good like overview of kind of Latvia's war history going all the way back to even like the Middle Ages. So it was a cool experience. They really put a lot of emphasis on the First World War, even more so than the Second World War. So you can kind of tell that's really where the Latvians are kind of most proud of their war history, if you can say. That also did lead to their initial independence, so I guess that's probably a big part of it as well. So that was nice, warmed up. So I'm gonna head over to St. Peter's Church now, which is kind of the largest church in the city, actually largest church in the country. So gonna check that out, and we'll check back in with you in a sec. All right, so I'm now behind St. Peter's Church, but before I go to the church and check it out, I had to stop at another famous Riga landmark here, which is the Bremen musicians. So the statue is based on a fairy tale by the Brothers Grimm, and it features 4 animals: a donkey, a dog, a cat, and a rooster, which are supposed to represent the 4 musicians in the story. So there is a sister statue actually based in Bremen, Germany. The main difference between that statue and this one is that you'll notice that the animals in this statue are peering out behind what looks to be just sort of like a block of concrete almost. So apparently the artist intended for that to represent the Iron Curtain, so it's supposed to mean, you know, the animals looking out into the future past the fall of the Soviet Union. So kind of an interesting little difference between that one and the one in Bremen. And last thing about the statues as well, you'll notice that a few of their noses are a little like worn down and are turning kind of a gold color. Apparently it is good luck to rub the noses, and the higher that you can reach on the statue, the more luck you'll have. We got the cat, so I guess I'm second luckiest. All right, so literally walked around the corner, and here's St. Peter's Church now. So as I mentioned, this is the largest church, not just in Riga, but also in all of Latvia. You can pay €9 to go up the bell tower to kind of get a really good view of the city. I think it's a little steep, and apparently the bell tower is closed for renovations anyway, so I'm just gonna go in and take a look around. Okay, just kidding guys, I'm not going in actually, because apparently it's closed. I don't really know what the hours of operation are. Churches don't really have set hours per se, so that's okay. So I walked around the corner and I've come back now to the House of the Blackheads. I'm actually gonna go inside and check it out. It's pretty nice in there, and I think it was only like €8 for a ticket. So let's go in and see how it looks. Cellars down here are really neat. This is actually the only original part of the building that survived the war, and they've got a lot of artifacts down here. This is kind of the assembly hall that I'm in right now, which is where these guys actually would have like held their meetings, conducted their business, because that was kind of the point of this guild, was that they would all meet here to sort of do their bidding and their trading, as well as party. The building also used to play host to foreign dignitaries when they would come to visit. They would often host dinners and balls and stuff like that here. And you can really see why this place is super opulent. Like, it looks like a palace, really. I've been in a couple palaces in Europe, and this stacks up. So the reason that this place is called the House of the Blackheads is, again, because it was founded by the Brotherhood of the Blackhead. And they got that name because their patron saint is Saint Maurice, who was of Egyptian descent. And as you can see here, the depictions are maybe not up to 21st century standards here, but yeah, that is how it gets its name, if you're wondering. Okay, so the downstairs was clearly just a warm-up, because I found the actual hall where they hosted the foreign dignitaries and the banquets, and this place is stunning. Like, the light fixtures, the ceiling, the portraits. I mean, this is straight out of a palace in Europe. So these guys clearly had some money to burn, and I totally understand why they hosted foreign dignitaries here, because what better place to show off? Also, big difference compared to other palaces in Europe. There is literally nobody in this room. It is just me right now. I'm just walking around in this massive hall, just all by myself, which is probably why my voice sounds really echoey. Right beside the main auditorium here is the smaller kind of dinner section, I guess. So if you want to have your, you know, private dinner with just 17 people, you can. I guess the saloon is only where the best of the best get to sit, because there's only 6 chairs at this table, so it's got to be a high roller to get in here. The final room at the end of the hall kind of seems like a fancy tea room almost. They even had very like elegant classical music playing in there to kind of set the mood. So I guess once you're done your dinner and dancing, you head off into the tea room for late night tea and whatever else these guys did. All right, so it was a pretty cool experience there in the House of the Blackheads. I actually thought it would be bigger in there, just because like it's pretty big on the outside. There were 3 floors, but the floors were like pretty compact, so got through it in like probably 30-40 minutes, if that. But yeah, only €7 to go in, so I highly recommend going in and checking it out. Still crazy to me there was basically nobody in there. Like, I had that whole massive ballroom to myself. So yeah, if you're in Riga, go check out the House of the Blackheads. Beautiful on the inside and out. For dinner tonight, I headed to Lido, a no-frills, cafeteria-style chain serving traditional Latvian cuisine in a cozy setting. Alright, so dinner was pretty neat. You kind of just go up and like tell them what you want, they put it on the plate, and then you just pay at the cash register when you're done. You know, food was fine, nothing to write home about, but it was super cheap. My whole thing, which included my full plate of food plus a beer, was less than 10 euros, so you know what, for that price, can't really complain. Restaurant itself was pretty nice. It was all decked out for Christmas, so that was kind of nice. So I'm back here at the House of the Blackheads. I'm gonna take some night photos now because it's 6 o'clock and pitch black out. I can't tell as well if you can see on the camera or not, but it is starting to snow now, so the rain that's been going on most of the day has now turned to snow. So actually my first snowfall of the year is in Latvia. Who would have thought? So if I haven't mentioned already, I'm staying at the Naughty Squirrel Hostel, which is one of the best rated hostels, not just in Latvia, but in all of Eastern Europe. I think they're like top 10 in Eastern Europe. I can totally see why. It's got a great vibe. When I came in last night, they had a huge party going, and there was another one planned for tonight, which is my plan after this. So great spot. It was like £40 for the weekend for a dorm bed, so you can't go wrong for that price. So yeah, I'm gonna take some photos and then head back to the hostel for a party, so I'll check in with you guys tomorrow. Good morning, guys. Welcome back to a very snowy Riga, Latvia. So this morning, a little bit of a late start. Big night at the hostel last night, so that was a lot of fun. Met a few people, met some guys from Germany, we hung out. So as you know, the Germans love to drink, so that was fun time. So this morning I am at the Freedom Monument to start. So Latvia, of course, has had a long history of different countries ruling them. You know, Sweden, Germany, Russia have all at some point laid claim to what is now today Latvia. So the Freedom Monument was erected shortly after the country initially gained its independence back in 1918, and it was meant to symbolize, of course, their freedom and their independence from occupation. Of course, that was somewhat short-lived because during World War II, first the Germans and then the Russians ultimately ended up occupying Latvia, and Latvia, of course, became part of the Soviet Union for, you know, 50-60 years. So once they regained their independence in 1991, this became a big symbol of that and the hope that, you know, they'll remain independent for the rest of the time now. So checking this out, and then I'm heading up actually to the KGB Museum. So of course, with the Soviet occupation, the notorious Russian secret police, the KGB, had a big presence here, and unfortunately a lot of people were unjustly punished and sent to Siberia or worse, if there is a worse. So I'm gonna go check that out this morning and, you know, see some of the Russian influence, because there is still a lot of Russian influence here in Latvia. In fact, 25 to 30% of the population is Russian. So I'm gonna go check all that stuff out today. So let's go along. So I'm not going to stop right now because it's Sunday morning and I assume there's mass going on, but this is one of the great things the Russians left behind. This is the Riga Nativity of Christ Cathedral. So it's a Russian Orthodox church. If you know anything about Russian Orthodox churches, they're typically very decked out. So I really do want to go in and check it out, but I might either wait till like this afternoon or tomorrow when there's not mass going on. Okay guys, so I've made it up to the Occupation Museum. So there's actually technically 2 locations for the Occupation Museum here in Riga. So the first location, which is the permanent exhibition, that's actually being moved right now. So unfortunately I couldn't go in to check it out. Although that is free to enter. So if you're in Riga when it's actually set up, I highly recommend checking that out. The other one is right behind me here. So this is what's called the Corner House. So this is actually where the KGB headquarters were. This is where they would bring prisoners to torture them or to ship them off to Siberia. So you can pay 10 euros and get kind of a guided tour around the offices and the cell blocks. So that's what I'm doing here. There's a small exhibit when you first walk in, which gives a brief history of the building and the KGB, or Cheka as they were also known. From there, the guide takes you through the back of the building, which housed the interrogation rooms and holding cells. It's hard to imagine what these people had to live through, most of whom had done nothing to deserve living in these terrible conditions. The tour concludes in the execution room. The markers on the wall all represent bullet holes, a visual reminder of the countless lives ruined in this building. Alright, so I think I need a little bit of a pick-me-up after the KGB Museum there. Really informative, but obviously very depressing as well. So my plan is to head up to this kind of area in Riga that has a lot of Art Nouveau architecture. If you're big into architecture, it's definitely something worth checking out. I'm not like an architecture expert, but I appreciate nice buildings, so I'm gonna go take a look. Also gonna probably pick up a coffee to get the energy levels back up and stay warm. All right, so I'm feeling much better now. I stopped at this place called Rocket Bean Roastery, had a coffee, had a banana bread. They're a little chain here in Riga, and the coffee is really good, so highly recommend you check them out. So I am now on the Art Nouveau street. I think it's called Albert Street. So Again, it's just lined with all of these Art Nouveau style buildings. There's actually even a museum on the road here that if you want to go in and kind of learn the history of like Art Nouveau architecture and why it's such a big thing here in Riga, you can. I'm not going to stop at the museum today, but I'm just going to admire the buildings here from street level. I'm cutting through this park on the way back up to the Nativity Cathedral. I want to go check that out, but it's just gorgeous with the snowfall. It has a very like Christmassy vibe to it. The city definitely takes on a whole new color once there's some snow. So unfortunately, guys, I could not film inside the church. There's no like photography or videography allowed, which fair enough, I understand. So it was kind of weird though when I walked in because there was like a bit of a queue. So I wasn't sure if like I had to pay or if people were just like buying things because they had like little souvenirs and things like that you could get. So kind of unclear. I just kind of stood at the back and just kind of took like an overview. I didn't really like go up and check anything because I didn't want somebody to start yelling at me that I had to pay. So yeah, I'm not sure if I just like got in for free and wasn't supposed to, or if people literally were just queuing up for souvenirs. If you know anything about Latvia, of course, it did used to be part of the Soviet Union. And if you know anything about the Soviet Union, they had a lot of weapons that just kind of like never got cleaned up after they collapsed. So there's this bar called the Armoury Bar where basically you can go get a drink and hold weapons if you want. So like AK-47s and stuff. So I'm gonna go see what that's all about because when in Latvia, right? So the Armoury Bar was as advertised. You literally just got to like go in and the guy would be like, oh, do you want to hold AK-47? Okay, sure, why not? So had a drink, got to like just kind of hold some guns. They're not loaded, thankfully. So kind of an interesting experience. But I actually ended up meeting this couple who originally from New Zealand, Australia, but now live in London. So we went to another bar, had a few drinks. So basically it's turned into exactly last night where I've had a few drinks and I still haven't had dinner and it's like almost 9 o'clock. So I'm gonna go try to find a place to eat before all the bars close because everything closes at 9 here. So I'm gonna go have a bite to eat and then go back to the hostel, call it a night. Good morning, guys. Another snowy day here in Riga. So this is my last day. I fly out later today. So I'm just going to kind of take it easy today, nothing too crazy. I'm going to go check out the Riga Central Market. So this is one of the largest markets in Europe. It's actually located in 5 old Zeppelin hangars that they've basically converted. It's got like every type of like grocery food you can imagine. There's meat, there's fish, there's veggies. They've got like basically one hangar for each of these things. So I'm going to go just take a wander around there. Probably just going to go back to the hostel because the weather is a little bit rough today and just kind of wait it out for my flight, maybe grab some lunch, and that's going to be it for me.
Hit me like a ton of bricks. Doesn't matter, weak or strong. Take your time and do your tricks. All I do is sing along. Yeah.
So before I go back to the UK, I had to stop and grab a couple more of these guys. So this is called the Serenade Bar. They're made by a Latvian chocolate company called Lima. They're really good. The best way to describe them is it's like a chocolate covered like granola / nut bar with like an apricot jam. So they're really good. I wanted to pick up a couple, one for myself and then one to bring back to Aleesha. If you're in Riga, definitely recommend getting a few of these guys. The story behind the bars is actually quite sweet as well. So the reason that they're called Serenade is because the guy that's supposedly invented them, he was doing it to impress a girl, so he made this amazing chocolate bar so that he could get this girl to fall in love with him. Which, let's be honest, chocolate is the key to most girls' hearts, so smart guy. Alright guys, back here hanging out with the Bremen musicians. I just got back from the market. It was absolutely massive. Like the pictures, the videos and stuff don't do it justice. You go in, there's literally hundreds of stalls selling things I have never seen before. Definitely come check it out if you're here. They do have some food stalls in there as well, like where you can get like prepared food and stuff like that. I went a little too early for any of them to be open, so probably would go a little later in the day and get some lunch next time. But yeah, really cool spot. Go check it out. So this is gonna wrap up my video here in Riga. I really hope you guys enjoyed it. Please be sure to like and subscribe and follow us as well on our TikTok and Instagram. Hopefully Aleesha will be back with me for the next trip and you'll get to see less of my ugly mug next time. Thanks again for watching and we'll see you on the next trip.
We are all